We just learned a little over an hour ago that President Trump is saying on his Truth Social site that he is a focus of a criminal probe of a January 6th commission looking into that, and more to the point, some of the prosecutors looking into that very case. Hadley Heath Manning is with us, the Independent Women's Foreign Policy President. Scott Bolden. Scott, of course, the former D.C. Democratic Party chairman. Hadley, this is a late-breaking development. The former president himself says he is a target of such an inquiry. I don't know how far it gets or whether it's yet another series of indictments he faces. What do you think?
It's exactly events and issues like this, Neil, that I think are dividing the GOP electorate when it comes to former President Trump. Of course, on many policy issues and his nominations to the Supreme Court, you saw a lot of unity among conservatives, a lot of support for those actions, those policies. However, when it comes to the president himself, to the personality issues, to the baggage that he might bring to a second term, a single term that he might serve if he's reelected, that's an inflection point for a lot of GOP voters, and it's one reason why there's this wide open lane for a third-party candidate who could come in and fulfill the dreams of many Americans who are so frustrated with both sides.
You know, Scott, I'm just wondering how Democrats react to this. We could talk about all the infight in their party and the fact that, you know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And Marianne Williamson, the two of them are, you know, capturing about a quarter of the Democratic sentiment as we speak. But I think they still want to see Donald Trump as the nominee because he's the guy they think they can beat. What if he's not the guy who takes home the Republican prize? Something happens.
Well, the number two would be DeSantis, and we'd be more than happy to have DeSantis, given that he's anti-abortion, he's anti-gay, and he's anti-diversity. There are not enough votes for the GOP to win with either Trump or DeSantis.
I mean, that's your opinion. He's anti-gay and anti-diversity, just because he has concerns about some of these issues, right?
The polling I've looked at, the most recent polling, 70% of independents certainly aren't going to support Donald Trump.
So bottom line,
DeSantis.
you think DeSantis is the backup guy. You think he is available to be picked off because he's just as bad in your eyes as Donald Trump.
Yeah, but there's something else going on here. Okay. The political pundits continue to believe that Donald Trump is going to remain in this race. He's facing 71 felony counts right now. He's going to be indicted again with the special counsel, because when you get a target letter, I'm a white-collar criminal defense lawyer, you get a target letter, that means you're going to be indicted. That means the government believes you've done something criminally wrong, and that's just going to add to the number of indictments that he's facing. And then you've got Atlanta coming. It will be impossible for him to stay in this race, because every night he goes to bed thinking about his liberty, not necessarily about being the president. And even if he becomes the president, which is a long shot in my opinion, he still can't avoid these state charges. And if he gets convicted and doesn't plead out, he is going to be sentenced to jail, because this criminal justice system could care less about politics or presidential elections.
Well, unless everything is pushed off, and if that is the case, you know, there's nothing in the Constitution that forbids anyone who's facing these kind of obstacles to still take the oath of office should he win. And Hadley, in a lot of these polls up against the president, Donald Trump does win. And I'm just thinking that voters don't seem to be too perplexed by it.
Well, it's interesting, Neil, because I think aside from questions about whether you agree with the candidate on his policy positions, so many Americans, voters on each side, the partisan primary voters, are looking at Donald Trump, looking at Joe Biden, and they're looking at other contenders like Ron DeSantis, Joe Manchin, and they're asking the question, can this person win? And that's weighing a lot into the calculus of voters in terms of where they throw their support. And so you might find that there are many American voters who say, this person isn't really my first choice. You know, if I could knight someone as the next president of the United States, I might pick this person, but I'm going to throw my support in the primary behind this other candidate because I think that they're more electable. And so, of course, that's a big part of the equation, especially this early on.
And meanwhile, very quickly, Scott Bolden, it seems like Democrats, some might have their problems with the president, but they're not about to switch horses now. What do you think?
Probably not. I mean, the polling shows 50 to 60% of those would consider a third-party candidate. Yeah. But if you ask the question about would they vote for a third-party candidate, they're not used to voting for third-party candidates. They're used to voting Democrat and Republican, and no third-party candidate in the history of our union has been successful at the presidential level. That's a lot of evidence against them, and I think it's going to be a Democrat or a Republican that's going to be in the White House after 2024.
Yeah, but that third-party candidate can influence who that ultimate winner is. We'll see.
Hurts Biden more. much Biden more than Trump.
Yeah, and don't get
In
me started, guys, on Teddy Roosevelt, 1912. Covered that campaign. Man, that blew me away. Guys, terrific job. I appreciate it very much.